Joseph Stalin didn't rule through charisma or spectacle. He ruled through suspicion. In his mind, trust wasn't a virtue. It was a liability. Every ally was a potential traitor. Every silence hid a threat. This wasn't madness. It was a worldview where paranoia felt like intelligence and fear felt like foresight. Stalin's early life was marked by instability, violence, and humiliation. A brutal father, chronic illness, and constant insecurity shaped a mind that learned one lesson early. Safety comes from control, not closeness. Vulnerability meant exposure. Power meant survival. These conditions didn't create kindness, they bred vigilance. Suspicion became Stalin's primary lens. Neutral actions were interpreted as hidden intent. Loyalty was never permanent. It expired. Psychologically, this is hypervigilance, a nervous system stuck in threat detection mode. When fear becomes constant, paranoia stops feeling irrational. It feels necessary. For Stalin, power wasn't ambition, it was regulation. Control calmed anxiety. Authority reduced uncertainty. Eliminating rivals reduced internal tension. The more power he accumulated, the quieter his fear felt, temporarily. Power became medication, not purpose. The purges weren't emotional outbursts. They were systematic. Stalin believed removing potential threats before they acted was rational governance. In his psychology, prevention justified destruction. Paranoia reframed cruelty as responsibility. Violence wasn't personal, it was preemptive. As paranoia intensified, Stalin isolated himself. Advisors rotated, friends vanished, information narrowed. Ironically, the fear of betrayal created conditions where betrayal became harder to detect. Isolation didn't bring clarity, it amplified suspicion. Stalin's fear didn't stay personal. It infected the system. Officials learned that survival depended on suspicion. Accusation became currency. Loyalty was proven by exposing others. Paranoia scaled from one mind to an entire nation. Psychologically, Stalin detached from individual suffering. Numbers replaced faces. Statistics replaced empathy. This distancing allowed mass harm without emotional interruption. Evil didn't feel cruel, it felt administrative. Stalin didn't seek love, he sought fear. Fear is reliable. Fear doesn't question. Fear doesn't leave. In his mind, a terrified population was a stable one. Paranoia reframed terror as unity. Here's the disturbing truth. In a world where betrayal feels inevitable, paranoia doesn't feel pathological. It feels intelligent. The danger isn't that Stalin was uniquely evil. It's that his logic made sense to him. Stalin made unpredictability a weapon. Promotions came without warning. Executions came without explanation. Psychologically, randomness keeps people compliant. When rules vanish, obedience increases. You stop thinking. You start anticipating. Confusion becomes submission. Reality under Stalin was unstable by design. Truth changed daily. Yesterday's hero became today's traitor. This is mass gaslighting. When reality can't be trusted, authority becomes the only anchor. Memory itself becomes dangerous. Guilt was irrelevant. Innocence offered no protection. In Stalin's psychology, innocence wasn't proof. It was camouflage. The absence of evidence didn't signal safety. It signaled deception. Paranoia inverts logic until denial feels incriminating. Stalin believed he saw everything. Surveillance fed this illusion, but information overload doesn't create wisdom, it creates distortion. When everything looks suspicious, nothing looks trustworthy. Control expands, clarity collapses. Power didn't reduce Stalin's paranoia, it amplified it. The higher he climbed, the more he feared falling. This is the trap. Authority attracts people who fear losing it most. Power doesn't cure insecurity, it feeds it. Rivals weren't dangerous because of what they did, but because of what they could do. Potential became threat. Competence became suspicion. Anyone capable enough to replace him became proof that replacement was possible. Stalin trained himself not to feel. Empathy interferes with control. Compassion introduces hesitation. Emotional detachment wasn't cruelty, it was efficiency. Feeling less meant acting faster. The more Stalin purged, the more resistance he created. Fear breeds resentment. Silence hides rage. His paranoia generated the very threats he feared, confirming his worldview. The cycle fed itself. At the end, Stalin trusted no one. Not doctors, not allies, not family. Paranoia stripped him of connection. Power gave him dominance, and total isolation. Control replaced intimacy. Stalin's mind wasn't an anomaly. It was an extreme version of a common pattern. Fear disguised as foresight, control mistaken for strength, paranoia rewarded with power, and history didn't end with him. Paranoia under Stalin wasn't a flaw in leadership, it was the system. Fear replaced law, suspicion replaced evidence. When paranoia governs, people stop asking what's right and start asking what's safest. That shift matters. It rewires behavior at scale. Citizens become informants. Silence becomes strategy. Survival replaces morality. The state no longer needs constant violence because fear becomes self-policing, internalized, automatic. Loyalty couldn't save anyone because loyalty implies choice. Stalin didn't want loyalty. He wanted inevitability. Devotion still allows doubt. Fear does not. Even his most faithful supporters were disposable because their closeness made them dangerous. The nearer someone stood, the more they could see, and being seen in a paranoid mind is the greatest threat of all. Paranoia thrives on certainty, not confusion. Stalin wasn't endlessly questioning, he was endlessly sure. Sure that enemies existed, sure that betrayal was imminent. Certainty shuts down self-correction. Once you believe you already know the truth, evidence becomes decoration. This is how paranoia hardens into ideology and ideology into justification. Stalin died, but his fear didn't. Paranoia lingers longer than leaders because it trains behavior. People raised under it continue obeying even after the threat disappears. This is the deepest damage, when oppression no longer needs an oppressor. Systems built on fear persist because fear becomes habit. This isn't ancient history. Paranoia still masquerades as strength today. Leaders who frame disagreement as danger, institutions that reward silence, cultures where questioning feels risky. The pattern repeats because it works, not morally, but psychologically. Fear is efficient. Control is addictive. You might think awareness protects you. It doesn't. Under paranoia, knowing what's happening doesn't equal resisting it. Resistance requires trust in others, in outcomes, in meaning. Paranoid systems destroy trust first. Once trust collapses, compliance feels rational. Living under paranoia drains more than freedom. It drains identity. When every action is monitored, you stop acting. When every word is risky, you stop speaking. Eventually, even private thoughts feel dangerous. The mind learns to shrink itself. In the end, paranoia devours its creator. Stalin's final years were marked by isolation, mistrust, and fear of everyone around him. Control became confinement. Power became a cage. The system he built worked until it worked on him. This matters because paranoia isn't rare. It exists in workplaces, families, relationships, governments. Anywhere fear is mistaken for foresight, this psychology emerges. Stalin wasn't born inevitable. He was enabled by a system that rewarded suspicion over truth. Now ask yourself this: where does fear quietly rule your decisions? Where does silence feel safer than honesty? Understanding Stalin isn't about the past. It's about recognizing how easily paranoia disguises itself as control. If this unsettled you, don't look away. Follow the pattern. Watch what comes next.